Hi guys, I've had a lot of you asking me all kinds of questions about the different condo hotels here in Las Vegas. Which one is better? Which one should you invest in? And I just wanted to go into a deep dive into all 5 of these towers. This is gonna be a long one, so try and stick with me till the end. If you can't, come back and make sure you visit again. We'll have chapters below. You can easily slide back and look at those. A lot of people have been coming to me wanting to find a property that they can Airbnb. This is one of the most difficult cities to do Airbnbs in. And the reason for that is there are so many rules in the city of Las Vegas and Henderson that don't allow for that because the casinos do not want that, right? They want people staying in their hotels. These condo hotels are a really great option for you because you're able to individually own them and rent them out at that nightly rate. And some of them, you can even do your Airbnbs in these properties. Now you might say, I go on Airbnb and I see tons of properties listed on Airbnb all the time. There are about 8,000 to 10,000 properties listed on Airbnb or for short-term rentals, and only about 10% of them are actually legally licensed. If you've watched some of my other videos, you may have seen me talking about that these condo hotels are not a really high monthly income producing property, but they are a great option if you are looking for something to be able to own a piece of property on the Las Vegas Strip and to be able to rent it out at that nightly rental rate and be able to get some type of passive income. Now let's deep dive into all these nitty-gritty details about all of the condotels here in Las Vegas. First, let's talk about Palms Place. Palms Place is located about 1.5 miles west of the Strip, right off of Flamingo. This building was built in 2006 and it has 47 stories and it has about 599 units in Palms Place. The type of clientele that it attracts is going to be more of a younger crowd and a little bit more of a partying vibe. The prices here range from the mid 200,000s all the way up to a $3 million penthouse, but typically the units here we see go for between the mid 200,000s and mid 500,000s. The square footage on these condos range from 615 square feet up to 1835 square feet, except for your penthouses. Those are going to be around 2,000 square feet all the way up to over 6,000 square feet. One thing to note is that 615 square feet is for the studios, which is actually quite a bit, not quite a bit, it's larger than a couple of these other comparable towers. So most of the other ones you're going to see your studios are in the 500 square foot range. So 615, when you only have so much space in a studio, that's definitely going to make it feel a little bit more open. Some of your amenities included are going to be a pool, a spa, a bar in the lobby area. You have valet or self-parking, which is nice to have both options. Some of these places only allow valet, so you are able to self-park. You'll also have all of the amenities over at Palms Casino. So Palms Place is actually connected by a climate-controlled bridge that connects those two properties so that you can access the casino. And Palms also has restaurants, food court. It has a really great movie theater in there. So easy access to all of that as well. Some of the pros are going to be that Palms Place allows Airbnb. A lot of the other towers are going to charge you a transient fee that is much higher and going to make it a lot more difficult for you to use those outside platforms like Airbnb or VRBO. Also, another pro is that you have a lot of units available. You're going to see this again on my con list because that means you have a wide selection. You also might be able to get a good deal on one of these properties because there is more inventory in this tower, but we'll talk about a little bit later why that could be also a con. Another pro is that because you are a little bit away from the strip, you are going to get some really great strip views from some of these units. So you have a little bit more of that distance and you can get the full strip view. In addition, some of these condos come with a washer dryer in the unit. Now let's talk about some of the cons. So my first one is that there's been no recent refresh. And you'll see this in a couple of the other towers as well. The only one that's recently had a refresh was actually Trump Tower. You'll see that it's a little bit more dated. There's a little bit more wear and tear to these units. Now, part of the reason for this is because a lot of these units are rented out through Airbnb. When the hotel allows for all these outside rentals, they lose a lot of that control over how the units are maintained and upkept. So that's why you've got kind of a give and take there. You have more flexibility with who you can rent it out through and being able to get a little bit more of that rental income, but the property is not as maintained as well as in some other properties. My next con is going to be, why are there so many units for sale? Right now, I think there's around 70 units on the market, and obviously by the time this video is published, it may have changed a little bit. A lot of people get into condotels without really realizing how much income you're going to make. It's not as high as what a lot of people think. So I think some people get into it without realizing that and then decide to sell it. I think also these units are really great for investors who want to put their cash somewhere where it can appreciate. They can also get that monthly income off of it. It's not going to be anything crazy, but then they might be wanting to move it into something else. A lot of investors own multiple units in all of these different condotel high rises. Another con is going to be that these condos have a little bit of a darker feel to them. I just wanted to point it out because it is something that a lot of people have mentioned to me that they were not fond of. Another con is going to be another one that was also a pro, and that is that it's further off the strip. So the pro side of that was that you get those amazing strip views. The con is that it's definitely not a walkable distance to the strip. You also have to cross over the freeway, so it's something that is not going to be an easy thing to do. While there is plenty to do right there in Palms Place and Casino, if you want to be able to get to the strip, that's something that's going to take a little bit more time. Take an Uber, rent a car, those types of things. Now we'll go into which units are facing the strip. So here, all of the units ending in an even number are going to be on the east side of the tower facing towards the strip. And the odd numbers will be facing west, which is going to be towards the mountains. The splits here are going to be 50-50 with the hotel. So that means from all of your rental income, if you are in the hotel rental program, 50% of that income is going to the hotel and 50 to you. There are two HOA fees. The first one is called a shared component fee. So just keep this in mind if you are looking at any of these properties and any of these buildings on your Zillow or Redfin, that there are two separate fees, and sometimes depending on how the listing agent input that information, it may show up differently and it may not show you the full amount for both HOAs. So if it looks really low and too good to be true, it probably is. The shared component fee is going to be between $825 and $854 per month for a studio, depending on the floor plan. And for a one bedroom, it's $1,637.50 per month, and this is managed by Terra West. The second HOA is operated by Pinnacle, and it's collected annually. And for a studio, it's about $22 a year, and for a one bedroom, it's about $44 a year. A couple other fees that we need to talk about are going to be the transient fee. So the monthly transient fee is if you're not in the rental program and you're going to be renting it out on your own through Airbnb, VRBO, or property management company. And that is going to be $400 per month for a studio and $470 per month for a 1-bedroom. Another fee is going to be your cleaning fee. So this is only when you are using the unit for yourself while it's in the rental program, or if you are not putting it in the rental program at all with the hotel and you're renting it out on your own, whether Airbnb, property management, all those other options, there is a fee for cleaning upon departure. So that fee is going to be $90.70 for a studio, and it's going to be about $113 for a 1-bedroom. Now, the big question, how much money are you going to make? Now, all of these numbers that I'm going to give you are based on different statements that I have been able to look at and from speaking with past clients who have purchased in these towers. Obviously, all of these numbers can vary, and they do vary throughout the year, depending on how busy it is here in Vegas. Our slower season tends to be January, February, or also going into September, October tends to be a little bit slower as well. So you'll definitely see some fluctuation. And if you are interested in purchasing one of these units, I'd be more than happy to share some of these statements with you as well. What I typically see is these statements will gross around $30,000 to $45,000 per year. You'll have to then take out all of your splits, whatever those may be, whether that's 50-50 with the hotel, or if you're going with Airbnb, whatever their fees are. If you're doing property management, I see a lot of them taking between 20 and 25%. And then, of course, you have to factor in all of your HOA dues and the other fees that we just mentioned. Okay, now let's talk about Platinum. Platinum is located just about half a mile east of the Strip off of Flamingo. So you can still get some really good views from there. You'll get some Strip views, and you also get some really great sphere views. So the Platinum was built in 2006, and it's 17 stories high and has 255 units. So it's the smallest of all of the condo hotels. The types of clientele that this property attracts is going to be more of like families or groups of people who are traveling together, because these are actually the largest square footage that you're going to get in a condo hotel if you exclude any penthouses. The prices range here from the mid 200,000s up to the 500,000 range, but most of the units are going to sell for between the mid 200,000s, mid 300,000s. The HOAs here vary in their cost based on the square footage of the unit. So we have 3 different size units. There's going to be a 1-bedroom that's 750 square feet. There's another larger 1-bedroom that's 930 square feet. And then you've got the 2-bedroom that's 2180 square feet. So for the smaller unit, you're going to pay $757 per month in your HOA, and for the larger 1-bedroom, it's $947 per month, and then for the larger 2-bedroom, $1958 per month. There's also a second HOA, and this is going to be managed by Terra West, and this one is only assessed quarterly. So for your smaller unit, the smaller 1-bedroom, it's going to be $59.61 per quarter. For the middle 930 square foot unit, you're $75.43 per quarter. And then for your larger unit, $159 per quarter. Some of the amenities included are going to be a pool, fitness center, a bar, spa, business center, Starbucks station, marketplace, concierge, and self-garage parking. Okay, now let's go over some pros and cons. One of the obviously biggest pros is going to be the price. These are the lowest price per square foot that you are going to be able to get in any high-rise property. They have some of the largest units and definitely some of the lowest price points, starting in that mid 200s range. Another pro is that owners do receive a 10% discount on your hotel rates. Now, of course, if you own one of the units, and even if it's in the rental program, you are allowed to reserve it for yourself. If you wanted to get, an additional unit for friends or family, you get that 10% discount. You also get 10% discount on spa treatments and services. And you also get 10% discount on food and beverages from all outlets. Another pro is that these condos have balconies. Now, you're not going to get a balcony in all of the condo hotel properties. Some of the properties have no balconies, but these all have balconies here at Platinum. The larger condos do come with a washer dryer in the unit, but these smaller one bedrooms do not come with washer dryer. Now let's go over some cons. There's not been a recent refresh. Again, there's only one tower that has recently been refreshed in the condo hotels. You'll just see a little bit more of the wear and tear and the age of the property. Another con is that they do allow Airbnb, but they do make it very difficult for you to do that. They charge you a transient fee that is going to almost double your HOA. So most of the time I see these properties being rented out through the hotel. Another con could be the location. It's, like I said, a little bit off of the strip. You're not so far. You definitely could walk from this side a little bit easier since you're only about a half a mile and you're on the same side of the freeway as the strip is. It's just a little bit removed, a little bit away from everything. Okay, now let's talk about which units are facing towards the strip for those views. So any of the units ending in 1 through 4 or 15 through 19 are going to face towards the strip. And if it ends 5 or 6, then you're facing towards the sphere. So just to clarify, because that's a little bit confusing. So say you're on the 7th floor, 701 through 704 is facing strip, 715 through 719 is facing strip, and 705 and 706 is going to be facing towards the sphere. The only floor that's different is on the top floor, the 17th floor. If it's 1701 or 1702, those are facing towards the sphere. And then 1711 through 1714 are facing towards the strip. Okay, now let's go into your splits and your fees. So splits here at Platinum are going to be 50-50. And your reserve fee, that FF&E reserve, still applies at this tower, and it's going to be 4% of your income. So that is going to be before the splits. Same thing like over at Palms. First they take out the reserve fee, then you have your splits, and then you have all of your other fees. So those other fees are going to include a hotel closing fee that consists of $1,200. That's a one-time transfer fee. And they also have a $150 document fee. The title company also collects at least 1 month of prepaid HOA shared costs. They also have in their rental program paperwork that they do charge at closing 1 month's HOA dues ahead of time. But that is actually pretty typical whether you're purchasing a condotel, another high-rise property, or even single-family home in an HOA community. You also have a $250 per month fee that includes housekeeping items such as quarterly deep cleans, which includes carpet shampooing, the laundering of duvets and curtains and pillows and things like that. Certain maintenance items are included, such as replacing light bulbs, troubleshooting electrical issues, adjusting valves, minor grouting and caulking, AC filter, and annually cleaning refrigerator condenser coil. Another fee is going to be your resort fee. So there is going to be a resort fee added on to each stay per night, which is $28 plus tax. If you have your unit in the rental program, then half of that is going to go to you. If you are not in the rental program and you're renting that out, then it's just that $14 that's going to go to the hotel unless you are on the deed as the owner of this property. So even if, say, you have your family and friends come and stay and use your unit, they still have to pay that resort fee of $14 per night. Another fee to just be aware of anytime you purchase a property, you're going to have to pay your property taxes. And then the last fee that I'm going to talk about is going to be your transient fee. And this fee is applied if you are not in the rental program with the hotel, but you decided to rent it out on your own, or even if you are living in the property. This fee has been hard for me to pinpoint the exact number of how much it costs because the Platinum Hotel does not want to give up any information, and it has to come from an owner. So I've looked over many of the owner statements and the HOA documents and things like that, and there hasn't been an exact number set. But what I've been told is that it approximately doubles your HOA dues. The reason I haven't seen this on any of the statements is that all of these units is in the hotel rental program. So because of the extra fee, I just don't see these properties being rented out in any other way besides through the hotel. Okay, the last fee I'm going to talk about is going to be your housekeeping fees. So if you are in the rental program, those housekeeping fees are included, which is a really great benefit, which is the same with all of these condo hotels, right? People don't realize how much those fees can add up. For instance, here at Platinum, for a one bedroom, it's going to be $60 per day plus tax. And for 2-bedroom, $85 per day plus tax. Imagine, especially if you're having it rented out every night, which hopefully you are, but those cleaning fees are definitely going to add up. So having that included, definitely is something to think about when you're comparing rental program versus renting it out on your own. Okay, now let's talk about your income. How much are you going to make at the end of the year? So as I mentioned, a lot of the statements that I've seen almost every single time I have seen any of these units come to the market and have requested statements, wanted to show them to my clients, they have been rented out through the hotel. So all of these statements I've looked over. Obviously, again, they fluctuate based on time of year and things like that. But at the end of the year, I've seen income of between $6,000 and $8,000, which if you divide that up, you're, $500-$600 per month. Okay, now let's talk about Signature MGM. Signature MGM is located just off of the strip on Harmon, and it's connected to the strip through the MGM Grand via a covered climate-controlled walkway. It was built in 2006, and this complex has 3 towers. Each of them are 38 stories high, and it has a total of 1,728 units, which is the largest of all of the condo hotels. The type of clientele that are attracted to Signature MGM is going to be pretty diverse, but it's definitely for the people that want to be pretty close to everything, but without having to pay those super high premiums of being over at City Center, which we'll get to in a bit. The prices here range from the high 200,000s and go all the way up to just under $1 million for a penthouse, but the majority of the units you're going to see sell between your 300 and 400,000 range. The HOAs here range from $950 to $2,500 per month, depending on the square footage of the unit. The square footage ranges from a 520 square foot studio to a 874 square foot 1-bedroom. Sometimes you'll see them listed as 2 bedrooms with the 1,394 square feet. This is when they are selling 2 units together, a studio and a 1-bedroom that are located side by side and separated, but have a common entryway that can also be closed off by an outside door to the hallway. The amenities here include a private pool with each of the 3 towers, as well as convenience shops, fitness centers, coffee shop, pet parks, and valet parking. You only have the option of valet parking if you are staying at Signature MGM. You could park over at the MGM Grand and take that covered walkway, as I mentioned, but you do have to pay that hourly rate at MGM Grand. So unless you have a high status with MGM, then maybe you can get some free parking over there. Okay, now let's go over the pros and cons. One of the biggest pros is going to be this location. As I mentioned, you are really close to a lot of the more desirable areas of the Strip. You also, from some of these units, you can get some really great views of F1 when it's in town, but that's definitely brought up some of the value and the interest in these towers, is being able to have F1 views. Another pro is the Oakland A's are going to be really close by. So if you are a baseball fan, that could be something that's interesting for you. They're just going to be just across the block over where the Tropicana used to be. Another pro that is unique to Signature MGM is that to enter into these towers is a guard gate. So none of the other properties actually have a guard gate before you even enter into that entry area. Another pro is that you would, as an owner, get 15% off of food and beverages within the towers, and you also get 10% off in the MGM Grand in some of their restaurants and shops. You also get complimentary cabana or daybed at any Signature MGM pool. And some of these units do come with balconies as well as in-unit washer dryers. A couple of the cons are going to be that, again, this property has not been recently refreshed. As I mentioned, it was built in 2006, so it's definitely going to be a little bit dated. There's going to be some wear and tear that is going to be evident throughout in the units and, in some of the common areas there as well. Another con is going to be that HOA. The HOAs at Signature MGM are some of the highest in the condo hotels. Okay, now which units are facing towards the Strip? In these towers, if the units are ending in odd numbers, then they're facing towards the Strip. When you're looking at these different properties, you'll see that their address is 125, 135, and 145. So the 125 is the first tower that's closest to Harmon, and then 35 is the next one after that, and 45, just for reference as you're looking at these different properties. Your splits here, if you're renting them out through the rental program, is going to be 60-40, and that's 60 towards the owner and 40 to the hotel. So a little bit higher in your favor. You do have a 5% reserve fee, and that's that FF&E reserve, and that goes again before your splits. And then after that, of course, you have your HOA dues, which that's another reason why a lot of people have decided, even though the splits are a little bit higher in the owner's favor, they've decided to go with a third-party property management company or Airbnb. But I typically with these ones see Strip View Suites or Jet Luxury managing these properties. The other fees that you're going to have are going to be your electricity. That's not included. You also have a DTI fee, which is $35 per month. You have your transient rental fee of $250 per month or $500 per month if it's not in the rental program with the hotel. You also have a 10% management fee per transient rental guest night occupied before the split. You also have a maintenance fee of $7 for a studio or $10 for a one bedroom, and that's per night occupied by a guest. This fee is to ensure that the engineering staff is available 24/7, and will also cover any labor costs for any work that needs to be done that will take less than a half an hour. Then you'll have your housekeeping fee, which is for when it's owner occupied or being rented out not through the hotel, and that's going to be $30 per day for a studio and $40 per day for a one bedroom. Of course, you will also have to pay your property taxes, and if this is a property that you will not be renting out through the hotel, then you will need to have your proper licensing. Now let's talk about the income. So as I may have mentioned already, I typically see these units over at Signature MGM being rented out with a property management company who specializes in these short-term rentals, these nightly rentals. But I'm seeing a annual income of between 30 and 40,000. And then that's of course before your splits and your other fees. And as I mentioned before, a lot of these property management companies are taking between 20 and 25%. All right, let's talk about Trump Tower. Trump Tower is located on the north side of the strip. You are just right across the street from Fashion Show Mall, and you're right by Treasure Island, the Wynn, but you are just a little bit set off of the strip. Still pretty easy access to be able to walk to the strip, but we'll talk a little bit about the location. There are some downsides to it as well. This tower was built in 2006. It's 64 stories high, and you have a total of 1282 units. And this is actually, just fun fact, this is the 5th tallest tower in Las Vegas. The type of clientele that you're going to see at Trump Tower is going to be a little bit more of your upscale professionals. The prices that you're going to see in Trump Tower are going to range from your mid 200,000s all the way up to over $1 million for a penthouse, depending on the square footage. Most of these will sell between the $300,000 and $500,000 range. You'll have 2 HOA dues here at Trump Tower. The first one is actually called the shared component fee, similar to some of the other towers, and that's going to range between $700 and $1,400 per month based on square footage. You'll also have a yearly HOA with Terra West. And this is going to be about $43 per year for a studio and $61.72 per year for a 1-bedroom. The square footage of these units range from 533 square feet to 974 square feet, except for your penthouses. Some of your larger 2-bedroom penthouses are going to be around 1,700 square feet. Some of the amenities include 2 restaurants, bars, a pool, a hot tub, cabanas, fitness center, spa, valet, and a coffee cart in the morning in the lobby. Okay, now let's go over some pros and cons. So one of the biggest pros that we're going to talk about, you've already heard me talk about in some of the other towers, that they are just a little bit dated. They've not had any refresh. Trump Tower has just recently had a refresh. The general maintenance of this building is really impeccable. For me, I've been in all of these buildings, and I would say that this one, the general upkeep of the common areas, the building itself, and the individual units overall is the highest out of all of the different towers. I also really like the staff there. You know, you go up to the front desk, they're all just really lovely and really easy to work with. Another pro is that the amenities at Trump Tower are the most high-end out of any of the condotels. You'll also have washer and dryer in your units unless it's a studio. You also have private mailboxes. Okay, now let's talk about some of the cons. So I mentioned I would let you know a little bit about the negative side of the location of Trump Tower. And that is on the back side of the tower, you're going to be right up against train tracks. So even from those top floors, and I've been all the way up in those penthouses and still been able to hear the train going by. Now, it's definitely not loud, but it's something to be aware of, especially if you're going to be on a lower floor. Another thing I want to mention about the location that could be a con for you is on Industrial, which is on the back side of that tower, is where a lot of the gentlemen's clubs are located. So just something to be aware of. Also, something that could be a pro or a con to you, but I put it with the cons because it has controversy, right? So the name Trump it triggers you, whether in one way or another. Not everybody. Some people feel, I've had several clients who have said they don't feel strongly one way or the other. But for the majority, 50% of the country really loves the name. 50% of the country doesn't. 50% of the country is not going to stay there. You've got that other 50% that could feel very strongly in the opposite direction and may choose to stay there specifically because of the name. Another con is going to be that none of these units here at Trump Tower offer balconies. Let's go into strip-facing units. So the units that are ending in 25, 26, 27, and 28 are going to be facing towards the strip, and if it ends with 00 through 07. Except for the penthouses. On the penthouse levels, you're going to have units ending in 00, 01, 02, and 03. 03 is going to be on that corner. And then you'll also have 09 and 08. And 08 is on the other corner. So on those sides, you'll get strip views. The splits here are approximately 60-40 in the owner's favor. You also have that reserve fee of 4% that comes out before your splits. Some other fees include electricity. You've got your shared component reserve fee, which is $75 per month. And you have your transient occupancy fee. If you don't use the rental program, this is a $79 per day for a studio and $105 per day for a 1-bedroom. If you're not using the rental program, that transient fee, $79 a day, $105 a day, plus your cleaning fees and things like that. Take into consideration, yes, those splits are higher, and you're going to have to give more of that to the hotel, but that is because they also do everything for you. So when you're weighing out the options, just make sure you consider that. And of course, again, you'll have to pay property taxes. The income for these units, because of the high daily transient fee, I definitely see these units being rented out through the hotel rental program. A lot of these statements I've been able to look over and see the breakdowns and the total due to the owner at the end of each month. I always say they definitely fluctuate. I see some, that at the end of the year have net $6,000, some that have net $12,000. But I would say the most common that I've seen, and even from my past clients who have purchased these units, approximately $1,000 a month is more common to be seen. All right, last one, Vdara. So this one has by far the best location. You are located right in the heart of the Strip in City Center, right next to the Aria, the Cosmopolitan. You're right in the middle of it all. This tower was built in 2008, which is the most recent of all of these condo hotels. This tower is 57 stories high, and it has a total of 1,495 units. The type of clientele that it attracts is definitely going to be a little bit of the younger range, that you want to be in the middle of it all and go out and party and things like that, but definitely at a higher price point than the other towers that we previously talked about. The prices at Vdara range from the high 500,000s up to $1 million plus, but you're typically going to see them sold in the range of 700,000s to 900,000s. The HOAs here range from $750 a month to about $950 a month. And the square footage ranges from 550 square feet to 850 square feet. Some of the amenities include a pool, spa, fitness center, restaurants, and coffee shop. And they have valet or self-park options. One of the most important pros is going to be the occupancy rate. Vdara has the highest occupancy rate, and they typically see between 96 and 98% occupancy. This location is one of the more popular locations, hence that higher occupancy rate. But obviously we've seen that also does come at a cost. You also have cafes and restaurants located in the tower, and there's a tram that can easily take you around the Strip, so you have really easy access to get to another hotel for another cocktail. You'll also have washer and dryer in some of your units here. One of the biggest cons obviously is going to be that price point. So it's the most expensive condotels are going to be here at Vdara. If you want to be in that prime location, you got to pay for it. Another con is that there's hardly ever any units available. Right now, there are only 2 units that are on the market, but they're both under contract. And the reason for that is that there's only, well, first of all, they obviously rent very well. So that's something that why people wouldn't want to let go of them. But there's only 140 units that are actually privately owned and rented out through the hotel rental program. The rest of them, so that's out of almost 1,500 units, only 140 of them are privately owned. So it just makes more sense. There's just not as much availability. Also, another thing about these units is that they do not have balconies, and that's actually pretty common. Most of the hotels here in Vegas do not have balconies if they're located on the strip. Okay, now let's talk about your splits. So we've got 50-50 splits with the hotel. You also have a 5% reserve fee, just like the other properties that goes into your reserve account before any splits. And then some of the other fees that you have, your transient fee, which can depend on the unit and the size of it and where the views are facing. So if it's facing straight into the Bellagio fountains, those ones have a little bit of a higher fee on those. And that transient fee is just if you are not using the rental program and you're renting it out on your own. And they range from around $250 to $450. Another fee is going to be your cleaning fee. So this is, again, if you are not enrolled in the rental program and you're using it for yourself or renting it out, and that's going to be $59 per night for a studio. You also do have to pay your electricity. It's billed through the HOA, but that is not included in your HOA. Another thing to be aware of, if you're not renting it out through the rental program, you still have to keep your hotel room up to the hotel standards. Some of the other towers will let you, change out some of the furniture or add some artwork or things like that. But these towers do not allow that, and you must keep it up to the standard. If you are privately owning it and not renting it out, you can do whatever you want to do in the unit. It's your unit. But just know that if you wanted to then go and sell it in the future, you would either have to bring it back to that standard, or just know that you would have a smaller buyer's pool that would want to own it just to live in it. Now let's talk about the income for these properties. Now, as I mentioned, these units very rarely come to the market, and it's been very difficult for me to get a hold of very many statements, so harder to give you a better idea of a range. I was able to speak with someone in owner services who was able to share, typically they're seeing anywhere between $1,500 and $2,500 per month is sent to the owner each month. Obviously, again, these numbers do fluctuate. She did mention she saw one that was about $1,200. So sometimes you're going to see a little bit lower. Sometimes you're going to see a little bit higher. Definitely one of the higher ends for that monthly income. Thanks for watching, you guys. I know that was a long one with tons of information. If you made it all the way till the end, leave me a comment in the comment section so that I know you stuck it out with me all the way through. A lot of the numbers end up kind of in the same place, right? So you've got the higher price point and the higher monthly income, lower price point, lower monthly income. Overall, you're going to be making around 4 to 5% return on investment. So it's really up to you where you want to be, what type of property do you want to own, and if this is the right type of product for you. So if you are interested in a condotel or any high-rise here in Las Vegas, I'm your high-rise expert. I'd be more than happy to schedule a free consultation with you. And all of my contact information is on the screen below, and it's at our website, thethomasgrouplv.com. I'm extension 4 for Christina, and I'll see you next time.